StackHunters back at it. We're going to do some rookie draft recaps. Dan Williamson, Bradley Stalder with you on this lovely Thursday evening. As Justin Timberlake says, it's May, and we are into May. We are past the rookie draft. Dan, it's like Christmas. You open up the presents and you see where these players land. It brings joy to my heart, and it was great to spend a lot of time with Player Profiler. Guys, I missed you down there. I missed you down in the Bay. I know you were tending to important things up in Minnesota, but still missed you. Dan and I still need to get together at some point. At some point in our lives, we need to connect IRL, as the kiddos say these days.
Yes, most definitely. Most definitely. Yeah, I was bummed out the whole time that I was up here and you guys were down there having a good time in Tampa. So, sucks to be responsible sometimes, but
what's that? What? I don't know what responsibility is like, Dan. I mean, come on now. You're talking to the the guy with 5 kids and a wife and principal. What is responsibility? I don't know what that is. I shirked it for an entire week and it felt amazing.
And that's the thing. I mean, because you're at the point where you definitely need to shirk that responsibility every once in a while or you'll go nuts. So,
well, we've got a great show in store for you today. Dan and I are going to look at the rookies, their landing spots, some of the narratives that are surrounding them, what our attitudes are toward these rookies in best ball. Dan's going to, I'm stalling right now while Dan is pulling up the ADPs on FFPC so he can talk about that. But the first player that I'd like us to talk about, and I think this is an interesting one in terms of narrative, both entering the draft and what happened during the draft. Shedeur Sanders, a projected first/second round pick. Many analysts had him mocked to the end of the first round, maybe in the second round. That's what a lot of the film grades were given for Sanders. He threw 37 touchdowns at Colorado last year. Yes, that was buoyed by Travis Hunter, blah, blah, blah. But you don't throw 37 touchdowns on accident, Dan. Shedeur is a good quarterback, but the fact that he fell to the 5th round, that at least raises your eyebrow a little bit, but he gets a nice landing spot with the Cleveland Browns. How are you approaching Shedeur Sanders and his, not just his fantasy value, but his situation overall, Dan?
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough to even try to take him in anything other than a super flex format. He was not even the first quarterback drafted by the Browns. Is it possible that he becomes a starter for the Browns or some other team before this year is over? I think it is, but I think I'd probably give about equal weight to the Toronto Argonauts as to the Cleveland Browns. So, this kind of a drop is really unprecedented for a quarterback, especially one who is expected to go so high. I mean, that says a lot about how, the draftniks were a little bit tone deaf to the things that the actual NFL teams are looking at. But also, I mean, every team passed on him multiple times,
Right.
And whether, when you get down to the 4th, 5th round, whether you have a need at quarterback or not, if you there's somebody there who you've got a 1st or 2nd round grade on, you're going to take them. You're not going to just sit there and go, yeah, we'll pass. Cleveland eventually traded up to take him, and reading the tea leaves, it kind of looks like it was something that the owner forced on the general manager and the coach, because they didn't look too happy in the room when he was drafted. So, and I think they were both thinking about what a circus comes along with him. And that's unfortunate, and hopefully a circus doesn't come along with him. If he's smart, it won't, because he simply cannot afford to have that whole circus going with him. He's he'll be out on his ear pretty quick if that's the case, because you know what, he just doesn't have the draft standing to allow that kind of stuff to go on. So maybe this is a good thing for him. Maybe he will get out there and show, what he showed in college and show that he is a better quarterback than what the NFL was thinking, it's possible, but I'm not really too worried about drafting him at this point. I would need to see at least some good news to even want to get in there.
The Cleveland Browns situation is kind of murky already. We expect that Kenny Pickett's going to be the starter. At least the sports books have him as the favorite to be the starter week 1. That you have Joe Flacco there. You have good guy Gabe, right? And now you have Shedeur Sanders. And Deshaun Watson is just an afterthought. He's like this $45 million afterthought on your roster.
Well, and he's probably not even going to be healthy enough to play all year. So,
right. Right. And we look at what Shedeur was able to do the last couple of years. 3,200 passing yards in 2023, 27 touchdowns, 3 picks. Last year, 4,100 passing yards in 13 games, 74% completion percentage. That's not too bad. You get your 37 passing touchdowns. And he's not known as a scrambler. He's not known for his speed. A 50th percentile 40-yard dash is just middle. It's mid. It's not special. And that's why teams had second-round grades primarily on Shedeur Sanders. But I think he was also getting mocked up a little bit because of the need at quarterback that some teams had, whether it was New Orleans, whether it was Pittsburgh, Cleveland, of course, get those connections there. So I wasn't expecting 5th round, but I didn't think we'd fall this far.
Yeah, and again, I'll push back a little bit on that NFL teams had him as a second round player, because I think if they did, he'd have gone a lot sooner than what he went. I think the draft community was kind of out on an island on him, and that showed up big time in the actual draft. Because I don't think that there was any sort of blackball or anything like that going on. I think each team made their own decision, and of course teams talk to each other and everything. Some teams may have made that decision by what they were hearing from the teams that talked to them. Other teams talked to them directly and made their own decisions. But basically the word on the street was not good for him. So it sucks that he got in that situation, probably of his own making, by not approaching the whole pre-draft process the correct way. But it is what it is, and hopefully he will come out stronger on the other end.
Well, a player who got targeted at the beginning of the draft, traded up for, that is some serious capital, not only spending the 2nd overall pick, but also trading up and trading away your 1st round pick. The Jacksonville Jaguars select Travis Hunter, 2nd overall. Hunter, a speed demon, 4.39, 40-yard dash, a 72nd percentile speed score. And this is a player, Dan, that I projected to be I pre-draft wide receiver 36, wide receiver 30, somewhere in that range. I think getting the Jacksonville Jaguars landing spot is good for Travis Hunter, that there's just Brian Thomas there. Hunter can get his 20+% target share. Lawrence is a competent quarterback, especially compared to what I was assuming Hunter would land on Cleveland. And you have major questions about the quarterback position in Cleveland or any of the other teams that could have taken New England if he fell to New England, right? We have questions of whether or not Drake May is that type of elevator. But Travis Hunter gets the former 1st overall pick, Trevor Lawrence. I think this is a good landing spot, and I want to aggressively target Travis Hunter in my best ball portfolio. I want to stay with market on Travis Hunter. Is that how you're approaching Hunter, or do you have concerns?
No, I mean, I think this is fantastic. I was reading a piece in The Athletic that was basically on, it was following the Cleveland draft room throughout the draft. And, of course, was published after the draft was already over. But this was apparently a trade that had been worked out in early April between Cleveland and Jacksonville, and it was only contingent on the fact that Cam Ward went first, because otherwise, obviously, Cleveland was going to snap up Ward, and the trade would be off. So, and I think the Jaguars GM. I mean, you can think what you want, but Gladstone has got stones.
Yeah, he does.
You
got to give the guy respect. Like, he looks like he's 13, but man, he looks savvy though. He talks like he knows what he's talking about.
That's a big boy trade. I mean, there's just no two ways about it. He's giving up that first round pick from next year's draft. And I think part of it was probably that, they're looking at next year and there's not a really great crop of wide receivers coming out. So that's part of it. And then I think also that, they got to be thinking, hey, we're not going to be picking in the top 10 to 13 picks, because that's usually where a lot of NFL teams most years kind of draw the line at. It's like, the top 10, 11, 12, 13 players are generally what they consider to be true first-round picks, and then most of the rest of the first round and then a big chunk of the second round are kind of all one plateau to NFL evaluators most of the time. So, what he's betting is that, hey, our first-round pick is going to come from that, after that cutoff, and, there's going to be just a different tier of player available. And we're not going to get into that top tier next year. So we're going to take our chance now and just do it.
Yeah, they took their chance, their opportunity. Gladstone getting the blue chip player Travis Hunter. And you mentioned the top 10, top 13 players in the league. The Jaguars have been picking either at the top, right? Or they've been, at 16, 17, 18. They've made the playoffs before. And they've been stuck in that middling area where once the blue chip players are off the board, then it's the chance that player hits decreases significantly. There's just usually the teardrops happen. And you see that in the picks of Stewart to the Bengals or Grant to the Miami Dolphins. Those players were not the top of the class, but the teams took them probably for need or probably because they were just a quality player. Fine, quality players are good, but they're not going to move the needle. Travis Hunter is a needle-moving player. And if you're sacrificing the 105, they were getting mocked Mason Graham, who is very good, but Hunter can change the game both on offense and in defense. So I love this trade for Jacksonville.
Yeah, definitely. And it sounds like they're going to really have him focusing on offense, and defense will be something where he's just kind of in there from time to time. But, if he's getting, if he's out there on, I don't know, 80% of the routes or something like that on offense, or 80% of the snaps, that I think he's going at wide receiver 30 in FFPC best ball right now. And I think that's probably not high enough, and especially given, in best ball that we really want to have those big boom weeks. And I think, he's a big boom player. So, he's somebody I'd be willing to chase up the board a little ways yet.
Yeah, my tentative projections have Travis Hunter in the same tier as Terry McLaurin, Devontae Adams, Drake London. I think that tier, Jackson Smith and Jigba, that tier instead of the Devonta Smith, the Tet McMillan. I have Travis Hunter over Tet McMillan for this year.
I don't think I can do that. I just don't see the target volume being there for him to that extent. Not with Brian Thomas on the same team.
Well, Dan, who else is Trevor Lawrence going to throw the ball to? It's going to be Travis Hunter, Brian Thomas, and
well, this is a Liam
That's it.
offense. No, Strange is going to get targets. The running backs are going to get targets. Yeah, out of the wide receivers, those are the two without a doubt. But I can't put him up there with Drake London, AJ Brown, JSN. I forget who else. Terry McLaurin.
Yeah.
I think all those guys are going to out target him by a fairly good amount. I mean, I see Hunter probably coming in at maybe 110 targets, 120, something like that.
Yeah, I have Hunter at 120 targets, 1,000 receiving yards, 5.5 touchdowns.
Okay. So you're just low on all the other receivers in the NFL.
Well, wow, take it to me, Dan. Take it to me. Look, I guess I'm very high on Travis Hunter. I'd rather be high on this type of player in this environment where we've
Agreed.
seen like Brian Thomas thrive, right? We saw Brian Thomas have his breakout rookie year. Evan Ingram isn't there anymore. Christian Kirk isn't there anymore. Gabe Davis is an afterthought. De'Ami Brown is an afterthought. Like, these two guys are going to be the 1-2 punch at the wide receiver role, and their skill sets overlap very nicely. Cam Ward, though, I don't know if Tennessee did enough for Cam Ward to move the needle in this draft, or even right before the draft, they signed Tyler Lockett. And after the draft, they signed Xavier Restrepo, his teammate in Miami. I'm just not convinced that DK or any of the other weapons that the Titans use draft capital on are going to move the needle for Cam Ward. I have concerns that Cam Ward is going to be stuck in like quarterback purgatory for this year. Dan, your thoughts on Cam Ward?
Yeah, I think he's a year away from really being very relevant in best ball or a redraft. I mean, obviously Dynasty is a different animal, but we've got him in the FFPC. He's going off as quarterback 27, and he's going right behind Anthony Richardson, which I don't know that I would do, because Anthony Richardson I don't think is going to be starting nearly as many games as Cam Ward. But he's behind Geno Smith. He's ahead of Sam Darnold. I think it's probably he belongs in the Geno Tua range, which is quarterback 24, 25. So
yes,
I can move him up there. I could maybe even see Bryce Young, quarterback 23, Matthew Stafford, quarterback 22. And that's about as high as I can push him, because then you start getting to J.J. McCarthy, and I'm not putting him over J.J. for sure.
No. You and me both. We're very high on J.J. McCarthy.
Right. So, I just hope that they can protect him. I hope that they can be patient with him, and, that they can bring him along, because he's going to be pretty much starting every game, I'm sure. And, so I'm just hoping that Tennessee doesn't ruin him by throwing him in too fast and throwing him in with not, enough quality players around him. But on the other hand, I do think that the kid has some skills. I think he's got a decent chance to be at least an average NFL starter long term, as long as he doesn't, get failed by his organization. I think one of the things I really like is the Minnesota, the Vikings. They're always talking about, that a lot of times it's not quarterbacks, rookie quarterbacks and young quarterbacks that flame out. It's the organizations fail them rather than they fail the organization. So, and I think that's spot on. So, hopefully the Titans don't fail Cam Ward.
Yeah, hopefully they don't. Calvin Ridley, Tyler Lockett, Alec Eomanor, Kamari DK, Van Jefferson. Yikes.
Yeah, weirdly enough, I like that Lockett signing, because I think that's going to give him a little bit more of a safety blanket. Lockett is still really good at getting open. He's no longer the the
yards after the catch guy.
Yeah. But but he's a guy who knows how to work with a quarterback and find the open spot in the zone, or figure out when the play breaks down, how to get to an open area in the field, and just present a target for his quarterback, and that's really what Cam Ward's going to need. So I think that's fantastic that they got him. I think he's going to be a nice little security blanket.
What is Ward's ADP again on the FFPC?
He is quarterback 27, ADP 159 right now. That's basically the end of the 13th, beginning of the 14th.
All right. Well, you can draft Cam Ward in the 13th or 14th round on the FFPC. Use the promo code Underworld. You'll find out more about the FFPC right now.
Hey, why do we partner with the FFPC? Because they have the widest variety of fantasy football formats, and it's the easiest place to find all types of fantasy football contests in the world. What if you want to play for high stakes? Well, they have a $6 million prize pool with their Fantasy Players Championship. They also have way too early best ball leagues that start in February and dynasty leagues. They have the closest thing to a liquid market for orphans that there is in all of Dynasty. And the FFPC has sponsored us for half a decade because we are actually delivering information that can help fantasy gamers, and they're generating so much interest and bringing in so many new users, casual users even. The FFPC creates a unique experience where you can both compete against the best and make money. Use promo code UNDERWORLD to get $25 off your first team. $25 off your first team at the FFPC with promo code UNDERWORLD. Go get it!
That's right. Go get it on the FFPC. Play some best ball. Dan and I are we're getting into some hardway drafts on the FFPC. I drew the 12 hole, and look, some people love the 12 hole. Some people hate the 12 hole. I'm just sick of the turns. I have been perpetually stuck at the dang turns on so many of my leagues. I'm all set. The fantasy gods are taking their toll on me. But hopefully, I mean, Dan, and Ashton Jeanty, I have like 2% exposure on Fast Draft. And this is terrible because I've been stuck at the 10, the 110 2-1 turn and never having a chance to draft Jeanty. So, it's really stinks getting the turn. But what doesn't stink is Jeanty's landing spot, Dan. Like, he got the best landing spot we could have fathomed. It's beautiful. Pass catching, the volume, it's all there.
It is beautiful. I mean, I don't know. I think Chicago might have been better, but there's nothing wrong with the Raiders for sure. As far as Jeanty, he's going running back 4. He's going at pick 8 overall. I expect I'll be underweight on that. I just simply don't like drafting rookies that high. They've still got to get themselves accustomed to the NFL. Go through an entire season. It's a little bit easier now that the college season has the playoff, and if you get a team, a player from a team from the playoff, they've been maybe through 14 or 15 games, so that's a little bit better, than what used to be a 12 or 13 game college season. So it's all right, but the pros are a lot faster, they hit a lot harder, everything else, And the way I look at it, I can get Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, Malik Neighbors, Puka Nacua, Trey McBride, all of those right around where Jeanty is going. And I just have more confidence in those players. I have confidence that I can go out and I can get Achane. I can put together a team. I don't think Ashton Jeanty is going to be one of those players who, you've got to have to really have a good chance to advance in a tournament or anything like that. I think it's more likely that he is starting to hit the rookie wall by the time you really need him in tournament time than he's going to be the guy who's just absolutely crushing. But, that's just the way I play, and I don't know. What do you think, Bradley? Am I crazy?
See, I love how you snuck in that you loved Trey McBride at that spot. That was a subtle jab at Brock Bowers, Jeanty's teammate. For what it's worth,
no, not really. Brock just goes. He's going like pick 4 overall. So, I mean, Jeanty would have to rise up a good bit. Yeah, Jeanty would have to go from 8 to 4 before he'd start having to deal with Bowers.
Yeah, no, I I like the Trey McBride pick. With regard to Jeanty, I have him at my projected RB4, so I'm in line with market. But if I'm ever in line with market, my attitude is I'll draft him if he's a value.
Right.
Like that's how I want to approach it. Like I'm seeing it equal to how other people are seeing it, which means that I'm going to occasionally get a value. And if Jeanty falls, fine, great, I'll snag him. If not, I don't feel the pressure to take a Jeanty. Like I can take. Actually, I have Jefferson ranked and projected ahead of Jeanty. I have, Jamar Chase projected ahead of Jeanty. I have other guys who are there, obviously. So Jeanty is a player that this is a similar attitude to how I approached Bijan Robinson a couple years ago when he was a rookie. And remember, Robinson was going at that 1-2 turn, and Tyler Algier was still there. I don't think there's a Tyler Algier on this Vegas Raiders team. I think that you are going to see more Jeanty, and like Pete Carroll is a coach who's going to lean on one guy. So I don't think it's a 1-to-1 comparison rookie year. I think Bijan is more talented, but you're not going to get. I really insulated myself from that Bijan rookie year boom, but like that bust experience, because I only took him when he fell. And that's, I think, the attitude I want to take with Jeanty. I'm fine with taking him. I'm not fading him into oblivion. My approach, though, is I'm only going to take him if he's a value.
Right. And, I know that Raheem Mostert is about I'm old, and Mostert might be older than me.
Well, in running back years, he's like 104. So
yeah, running back years, he's definitely older than me. In running back years, he's basically like King Tut or something. Who's been buried for ages. But you've got Mostert there. You've got Sincere McCormick, who really
he flashed
wasn't
for a little bit
bad last year when he got a chance. And you've got Dylan Wabi there, who might also pick up and take a little bit more in the passing game or whatever. So it's I don't think we should be going out there and saying Jeanty's going to be getting 90% of the carries, 90% of the touches, or whatever. I think that is definitely fantasy land. I think he's probably going to get somewhere around 70%. And he will get that as long as he can handle it. He's not wearing down, etc. But yeah, I think they're going to find ways to, take a little bit of the pressure off of him one way or another.
Yeah, I have Jeanty projected for a 63% rush share and a 12% target share. So I do think he's going to get involved in the passing game. Geno Smith, accurate, close to the line of scrimmage. That's one of the hallmarks of a Geno Smith offense. Look, last year, Charbonnet and Kenneth Walker both had at least 8% target shares. So if that consolidates even just a little bit to Jeanty, we're looking at a 10 to 13% target share. So I landed on 12, and Jeanty 7 rushing touchdowns. This is also, a good thing for Bowers, because they could have drafted a wide receiver that early. They could have taken McMillan, and that would have hurt Bowers. It would have hurt Myers. But I think this was the spot. You get the little puzzle piece of the 12% target share, 10% target share, and then it fills the need at running back that they so desperately had.
Yep, fair enough.
All right, one more running back was drafted in the first round, Dan. It was Omarion Hampton to the Chargers. And Hampton really picked it up at North Carolina in terms of the pass catching. Over 30 receptions during his final year at North Carolina. He lands in the Jim Harbaugh offense. We know Harbaugh can run the snot out of the ball. We know that's the telltale sign of how he runs his offense. And Najee Harris also there, signed as a free agent. Harris is your prototypical plotter, whereas Hampton brings a little more dynamism to this offense, Dan. How high are you willing to take Hampton, not just in like the best ball streets right now, but also, we're dabbling in the dynasty streets. Like where Where is Hampton going to go in both of these situations?
Oh, in your rookie drafts in Dynasty, I think he's the strong candidate for the 102. I think it's basically either him or Tut, or Cam Ward if you're in a super flex. But those are going to be your options there. Right now, he's going in FFPC best balls at pick 37, running back 14. So basically at the beginning of the fourth round. To me, that's probably a little high in one sense, but also maybe not so much in another sense. And what I mean by that is, I think he's going to be a little bit the opposite of Jeanty. Whereas Jeanty, your concern is he's going to wear down. With Hampton, your concern is, how much is Najee going to steal from him in the early games? But as you're coming down the stretch, if you've got Hampton in your lineup and he has managed to shove Najee aside, you could be looking at a running back who's, regularly clocking in as an RB1 that you paid a little bit less for when it comes down to the, the weeks that really count. So I don't mind the price. I don't think it's going to really go up from here because, you got to start putting him over Chase Brown, Breece Hall, Kyren Williams. I think it's pretty hard to do that. He's right there with James Cook. So I think his price is either going to stay the same or fall some. But
if it falls, I'm buying that.
Oh yeah, for sure. So yeah, I think it's a solid pick. But you're gonna wanna just think about the early season, and do I maybe want to take a running back that's more likely to perform well in the the first few weeks of the season, and you'd want to take that running back somewhere late. I mean, you don't want to be wasting a fifth or a sixth or a seventh round pick on a running back like that you think is going to fade down the stretch. You want to be grabbing like maybe a Javonte Williams or somebody like that, that might, who's going in probably the 11th, 12th, 13th round and is going to give you a few good weeks off the start. And then, by that time, Hampton is really rolling, and it doesn't matter so much what Javonte is doing.
Yeah, it doesn't. Yeah, look, we won't talk about the Dallas situation too much, but boy, oh boy, that could get very ugly very fast.
Yes, it could.
Henderson goes just a little bit after Hampton, and he gets a tougher landing spot. TreVeyon Henderson lands in New England, second round draft capital, a player that is now going to have to split the backfield with Ramondre Stevenson. And Stevenson is not a nothing burger. Stevenson is at least a something burger. He can pass catch. We've seen upside games from him. It's been an interesting ride for Ramondre Stevenson drafters over the last few years. Heck, there was a week last year where the coaching staff said Ramondre Stevenson's gonna be benched to start the game. And then who starts the game? It's Ramondre Stevenson. Antonio Gibson does not get the start. So this is a player that they extended last offseason. But I think Henderson is the type of running back that can help elevate Drake May a little bit more, Dan. And Ramondre could be looking at losing his job over the course of this year. That's how I'll anticipate. You talk about a slow start. I think Henderson maybe has a little bit slower of a start than Hampton, but Henderson could just full on take over by the end of the season.
Yeah, the Patriots basically last year when they gave Ramondre that contract, they were kind of like Leonardo DiCaprio, sitting on the back of the boat, just flipping money into the water. They had so much salary cap, they didn't know what to do with it. And, they really needed, they wanted to reward Stevenson for a good year the previous year. And, and he went out and I thought he pretty much laid an egg last year. There was basically, that 1 week Antonio Gibson didn't get the start, but Antonio Gibson kept getting more and more playing time, and Stevenson was losing playing time.
Right.
That does not bode well for having a young dynamic back like Henderson coming in. I think some people are comparing Henderson to Gibbs. I think that's kind of ridiculous.
There aren't many Jahmyr Gibbs in the league, Dan.
No, there are not. And, but, the thing is, he could, TreVeyon Henderson is definitely the running back with juice in that backfield, and
Right.
we've seen with Josh McDaniels, he takes these backs that are really good in space, like Deion Lewis and James White and guys like that, and they've, he's really made something out of them, and I think he's excited to scheme things up for Henderson, and Ramondre is going to be kind of their the guy doing the dirty work. Which hopefully might lead to a few touchdowns for him. But yeah, it's pretty tough to bankroll Ramondre with Henderson around. And Henderson's going running back 19, pick 53 overall, which is kind of the middle of the fifth round. So that's not a price tag I really mind at all.
Yeah, he could really take it over. I already project Henderson to have. So in my best ball value rating projections, I have him at 6.2. And Stevenson at a 3.8. So significant difference between the two. And the half PPR points are just so much higher. Full PPR even more so with I think that Henderson, he's a good pass blocker. He stayed on the field at Ohio State, even though there was still Quinshon Judkins there. I projected for an 8% target share with Stevenson still getting some decent work, but with the wide receiver room so ambiguous and Stephon Diggs' timeline questionable, they may just lean on Henderson and Stevenson very heavily to start the season.
Yeah, that's definitely possible, and that's what makes Henderson so fun, because he's another guy like Hampton who you could see really starting to ramp up more and more as the year goes along. So like that one.
Well, we'll keep it moving to the other Ohio State running back, Quinshon Judkins. If there was another running back who got just an amazing landing spot in terms of volume, it's Judkins. Now, is the offense overall very good? No, I don't think so. But Judkins was if you're looking for a fantasy asset, you're hoping for landing spots with massive opportunity. And Cleveland, there are holes. Nick Chubb is not expected to return to the Browns. There's been some rumblings he might sign with the Bears, but the Cleveland people have accepted that he's probably not going to return to Cleveland. And that leaves Jerome Ford, who was a nice backup for a little bit of a time, and Dylan Sampson drafted later on in the draft. And there was a lot of rumblings. We had John Laub on, and he was talking about how Sampson still needs another year to just sit behind. So Judkins is going to get the majority of work, is how I'm projecting it. Ford is going to get sprinkled in, and then Sampson maybe gets a couple carries throughout the season. Is that how you're projecting Judkins and this Cleveland backfield?
Yeah, and I think this is a team that, we were talking about the quarterbacks earlier. So, for those who were here from the start of the show, we think it's basically a clown car at quarterback for the Browns. And, they're going to be wanting to hide that quarterback room as much as they can. And, featuring Judkins and, using the running backs, using short, quick passes, things like that. That's going to be the best way to do it. So, yeah, I think Judkins is going to get a ton of volume. You worry about how many touchdowns this team is going to score, but, they have a really good defense, too. And a really good defense goes very nicely with, a running back who can help you control the ball on the ground. So, there you go.
Well, the player profiler comp for Quinshon Judkins is Nick Chubb. So there's a 1-to-1 correspondence there. For what it's worth, rookie year Nick Chubb, remember the Browns had Carlos Hyde, and he was getting the majority of the work until he was traded to Jacksonville for nothing. And that allowed Nick Chubb to explode on the scene. He finished with 192 rush attempts, 996 rush yards, 5.2 yards per carry. He had 20 receptions his first year and 10 total touchdowns. So, and this was with Chubb not playing very much until that trade, which was week 7, he started getting the full workload. He had not had more than 3 carries in a game before that, and then just tore up the NFL. And if we see the Browns take their next steps, I think the only thing that gives me confidence for the Cleveland Browns is that Stefanski is a good coach. He's a good coach. He knows how to work with his guys. He hasn't been given much to work with. But, by the time you get to week 6, week 7, he's probably figured that Kenny Pickett's not the answer, that Dylan Gabriel's not the answer. Joe Flacco might be the best answer. Maybe he'll give some snaps to Shedeur. Whatever the case may be, he's going to be giving a lot of work to Quinshon Judkins. So I love the Judkins pick, both short-term and long-term.
Yeah, I do too, and I do like Stefanski. I do worry about whether he's going to have a job at the end of the year, just due to what he's been forced to endure at the quarterback position. But he's a good coach, and I think he is going to get the most out of Judkins.
Well, another running back draft in the second round, RJ Harvey, player profiler rankings had him as the RB6 in this class going into the draft, and Sean Payton fell in love with his guy. My only concern, Dan, is that Sean Payton operates like a Sith. There's always 2 of them. There's always 2 in the backfield. The question is, who are the 2 going to be? It's probably RJ Harvey, but I'm really trying to not allow my Notre Dame bias to influence who I want it to be, Dan. I want it to be Audric Estime. You and I both know Audric Estime is my guy, but it could be Blake Watson. It could be Jaleel McLaughlin. We are pretty sure round 2 draft capital is the indicator. RJ Harvey's going to be the guy in Denver.
Yeah, and so I think he's going to get every opportunity to earn as much work as he can handle. I guess the question is going to be, how much can he handle? He's not the biggest dude in the world. He's, I think 205, 206, something like that. Which is, that's not a deal breaker or anything like that. I mean, we've seen plenty of, backs between 200, 210 pounds do very well in the NFL. I think, he's shown really good contact balance. He can, he pin balls off of, tacklers. He's really good at making tacklers miss, all that kind of stuff that you want to see. But again, he's a rookie, and, there is some, with Jaleel McLaughlin, kind of what I think about him is, he at least is an adult in the room, as far as like somebody they can rely on if they need to. So, I'm not saying that I'm going out and drafting a lot of Jaleel McLaughlin. I'm not, but he's going to be, I think, him and everybody else that you mentioned. Estime, is really a bowling ball, and he's a good. I think he's a good between the tackles guy, and so I see that Harvey is probably going to be. I don't know. I would pencil him in for about maybe 65% of the running back load. In Denver, it could go up from there. It could go down from there. But if he gets 65% of it, I think he's probably going to come pretty close to paying off his running back 22 price in the FFPC, which is basically right at the beginning of the 6th round, pick 61 overall.
Interesting. My projections have Harvey at a 44% rush share. I think McLaughlin still gets some sprinkle. Estime still gets some sprinkle. And Bo Nix last year had 20% rush share. Like, he's a very mobile guy. So maybe 60%, 70% of the running back rushes, but the amount of total rushing attempts, you have to account for Bo Nix being, taking up some of those as well.
So let me give you this one. Pick 61 in FFPC is RJ Harvey. Pick 62, Travis Hunter.
Well, I can tell you based on my projections. I'm pretty sure I would go with Travis Hunter, but let me just double check that. That sounds right. based on the numbers. Yeah, so Hunter I have at 179 points and Harvey at 150.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, so
And
give me
that's
Hunter.
kind of the way I play it too. I think if and unless the way I'm building my team just kind of dictates I need to take a running back there, but I try not to be at a point where, especially at the beginning of the 6th round, I don't want to be dictated to. I still want to be kind of flowing and taking the value, and for me, that's going to be Hunter as well.
For sure. Well, we got another great landing spot. The Pittsburgh Steelers draft Kaleb Johnson in the 3rd round, and Johnson was mocked as a day 2 running back. He was the Iowa offense last year, 1,500 rushing yards. With Kaleb Johnson, though, the question is how much is he going to get in terms of the passing load? Last year, Najee Harris got a lot of it, but it was because Jaylen Warren was hurt or out or was dealing with things. He just wasn't looking himself. Even Coach Tomlin late last week came out and said after Warren had signed his RFA deal that Warren is going to get very involved in the passing game. So if Johnson is relegated to between the tackle stuff, then he's going to be more touchdown dependent and a limited ceiling, where Warren might be an interesting flex option in PPR scenarios. But there's still the boogeyman of who's the quarterback in Pittsburgh. Will Howard, Mason Rudolph. That offense could be very bad.
Yeah, exactly. And, Kaleb Johnson is going pick 69, which is, late 6th round.
It's very nice. It's very nice.
Yeah, it's running back 25, but also, you can drop down to, Aaron Jones is going at, pick 79.
Right.
You got DeAndre Swift going at 84. Tony Pollard going at pick 86. And I think
give me Tony Pollard. Easy.
Yeah, I think any of those are, probably going to be in the same ballpark as Kaleb Johnson. I know a lot of people are scared off by Aaron Jones because of his age. I'm a little bit less scared because of the fact that I like the fact that they got Jordan Mason in there. I think that's going to take some of the wear and tear off Aaron Jones, and they can keep him nice and fresh. And he's still very elusive. He's still very good at getting yards after contact. So. Kaleb Johnson, I think, is he's kind of a guy that, especially in these tournaments, I think he's a high floor, low ceiling guy, and that's a little bit tough for me to take at that particular spot.
Agreed. You want to get guys who will give you some upside, who can swing for a 25-point game, and I don't know if that's in Kaleb Johnson's range of outcomes. Because even if the Steelers get a quarterback, then that might unlock your DK Metcalf or George Pickens. They have receiving options. I guess the only counter to all of this is that we saw Cordarrelle Patterson put up an RB1 season under Arthur Smith. Now, maybe the argument is that Jaylen Warren more fits in that profile of Cordarrelle Patterson, pass catching back. But Kaleb Johnson, I projected him to get the majority of the rush share.
Yeah, I think that's probably fair. And again, I'll give you one of those on the clock things. We have Kaleb Johnson at pick 69, Jordan Addison at pick 70. Who are you taking?
I have Johnson over Addison.
Really?
I do.
You've been kind of a big Addison guy, though.
I know. I don't know. Look, maybe it's because of the positional value. So I have Pollard over Johnson.
Okay.
I have Addison over Ridley, Addison over David Montgomery, over Tyrone Tracy, over Zay Flowers, over Chris Olave. So, it just depends. That's where it feels like a pretty flat tier in terms of wide receiver, though. So, one touchdown can move the needle significantly there.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we'll keep it moving. Another running back goes in round 4, Cam Skattebo. And Skattebo did his way to the New York Giants. Tyrone Tracy was a player that Dan and I discussed this offseason as a possible zero RB candidate and a player that, there's not a lot of draft capital invested. He was a 5th-round pick last year. The range of outcomes is so wide for Tyrone Tracy, though. He could be, he could be the bust, he could fall to the wayside, or he could turn into the 2024 version of Chase Brown. I think it is a very wide range still for Tyrone Tracy, but Skattebo, like the selection of Skattebo, in my opinion, is this hedge. Like the Giants are hedging. They're not completely sure if Tyrone Tracy's the guy, but they're also not saying that he's not the guy with this selection. Because Skattebo, he was a mega producer in college, yes, against some bad competition or poor competition, but he still balled out. So, and you love his attitude. You love what he brings to the squad. I think the Giants are going to be happy with him in the locker room, and that may earn him some touches, earn the coach's opportunity or coaching. The coaches will give him more opportunities, but I still project Tracy above Skattebo, even with this selection. Dan, how are you reading this situation?
Well, the FFPC drafters agree with you. They've got Tyrone Tracy at pick 87 overall, and they've got Skattebo at 102 overall. I have a hard time picking a winner between these two because they have a lot of similar traits. I mean, Tyrone Tracy used to be a wide receiver in college and then switched over to running back his final year. Skattebo is an excellent receiver out of the backfield, so they both have receiving chops. Tracy has the benefit of having been in the NFL a year already, and he understands what's needed. But he's also been a fumbler a little bit. He put the ball on the ground, I think, 4 times last year. And that can quickly get you into the doghouse. So Skattebo definitely could have an opening here to jump him. I think, this is one of those things where you want to have a little bit of Tracy, you want to have a little bit of Skattebo. You're not taking them on the same team, but you're just, you're betting on one time, betting on the other time, and take either one of them where they fall a little bit.
Well, you look at who's catching the ball for the New York Football Giants. It's Malik Neighbors and it's Malik Neighbors. Like Neighbors over under like a 40% target share for this year is not as crazy as it might seem, given that it's Darius Slayton, Theo Johnson, Dan, Skattebo, and Tracy are gonna get targets out of the backfield.
Yeah. I definitely agree, and they may be planning to even like split Tracy out, and Skattebo can be in the backfield or whatever. I think they have a bunch of different ways that they can line these guys up, possibly get them both on the field, in the same formation. So this is a good chance for the Giants to get creative here, and they're going to need a lot of creativity for sure.
Well, we'll combine the next couple players, Loveland and Burden, both Chicago Bears players drafted in round 1, round 2. There was a lot of love for Loveland, but Burden, there was a lot of chatter before the NFL draft. He needs first-round draft capital. He didn't get first-round draft capital, but Burden is a player that could fit very nicely in the slot. And Ben Johnson has come out and said, we want to get the guy who's targeted, a guy who's in the slot, lots of targets. So maybe Burden gets some targets there, but Loveland is also going to get some work. The problem is Cole Kmet is a very useful player still, Dan, and that's not just my Notre Dame bias very loudly speaking. It's that Cole Kmet has produced year in, year out. I feel like both of these players were luxury picks. How are you approaching Burden and Loveland?
Yeah, I mean, to me, this is Ben Johnson, kind of going out and getting his guys and setting the team up for the future. But that's not to say that the future could not start happening this year too. So, You know, DJ Moore was he was flaky last year, you know, to say the least. And you know, I'm sure Ben Johnson looked at that and was like, you know, what am I going to do if all of a sudden DJ Moore starts flaking out and Rome Odunze doesn't progress, Keenan Allen is gone, then you know, what are we relying on here? You know, and I think that Komet and Loveland play the tight end position differently enough that if they want to get both of them on the field, they certainly can do that. You know, you can run 12 personnel, and you know you can have Loveland streaking down the seam, you know, and getting vertical, and then you can have Komet working through the flats, you know, kind of underneath. Komet is a really good blocker, so you know it just gives you a lot of versatility there. I like Luther Burden a lot. I just took him. I'm doing a startup dynasty right now. I got him at pick 510. Romo Dunze went in like the third round. I mean, I ran to the podium when it was my pick to take Burden. So,
Dan, can I join that league? You're like, no, Bradley, you're in too many of my leagues already.
Well, it's a little late to get in now, but
if they're
I'll let you
taking,
know if there's any orphans. There's a couple
that,
teams I've seen that you know, we're only 6 rounds in, but
that one might be orphaned real
available.
quick. Yeah, Roman Dunze in the third round might get orphaned real quick. And Mika Egbuka, I don't think this is very good for Egbuka. I think the only winner in Tampa, though, from this selection is Baker Mayfield. I think that's the takeaway. Baker was already very, very high in my projections, and he's going to continue to stay that way with the Egbuka selection because no matter what happens with Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, McMillan, or Cade Otton, Baker Mayfield is standing the test of time here in Tampa, and it's just a perfect fit. So continue to wheels up Baker Mayfield.
Yeah, for sure. And, you know, the thing is, I just want to go back to Burden real quick because he's going to pick 111, wide receiver 48. That's a price tag I can definitely get behind. I think he's going to have some big weeks, you know, and out of your basically, you know, early 10th round pick, you're not necessarily needing them to, you know, contribute 10 starting weeks. You know, if you can get 5, 6, 7, something like that, you're probably going to be doing just fine. If you get more than that, then that's going to be a real win for you. Egbuka is going to pick 115, wide receiver 49 overall. And I'm definitely going to have some Egbuka because, you know, just because I can't see the specific path for him to be relevant, he has several paths to relevance, you know.
Right.
Mike Evans could get hurt again. Chris Godwin could get hurt. Chris Godwin could be behind on his rehab and start the season off slow. You know, it's not like McMillan is going to keep Egbuka off the field.
Right.
Cade Otton is not going to be stealing his passes either. So, you know, even though he's got Egbuka and Godwin have a large overlap in skill set, you know, Godwin can play on the outside.
Right.
And they may ask him to do that more. So, you know, I'm going to have some Egbuka. I don't know if I'm going to be even weight or not, but I'm going to probably try to at least be close on it because I think he's a really good player. He's got a talent, you know, terrible landing spot. Had he gone to another landing spot, I mean, you know, he might be going like wide receiver 24, 25. So when you get him for wide receiver 49, you have that kind of talent. I'm going to make that bet.
All right. Well, our last topic for tonight, we're getting close to an hour here. We're going to finish off with the tight ends that went in round 1 and 2. Ty Warren, Mason Taylor, Elijah Arroyo, Terrence Ferguson. If you were to pick the one to hit in year 1, Dan, who would it be of that group of 4?
Mason Taylor.
Mason Taylor.
And that is based partially on price and also partially on kind of where he's fitting within the offense. Right. I mean, basically you have Garrett Wilson and a bunch of lawn chairs at wide receiver. You have no tight end of note there, other than the guy they drafted last year, whose name is escaping me, Ruckert.
Ruckert, yeah.
You know, this is a spot where they are, whoever is going to be the number 2 target in this offense is wide open. And
so you're
Mason
telling me
Taylor,
Alan Lazard could be the guy?
I said it was wide open. I didn't say Lazard could be the guy. What's Bradley? Come back to planet Earth, Bradley.
Alan Lazard season, baby. Let's go.
I mean, but that's almost what you got to bet on if you're not betting on Mason Taylor. And
right, pretty much.
Warren is going to be in a low volume passing offense. There's already Josh Downs. There's already Michael Pittman. It's hard to see how Tyler Warren
Mitchell, Alec Pierce, like those are respectable target share guys too.
Right. It's hard to see how he's going to pay off his price in FFPC, because right now Tyler Warren, he's going even above Colston Loveland, pick 77. He's tight end 11, middle of the 7th round. Can't do that. And then so who else did we have? We had
Arroyo and Ferguson.
Yeah, Arroyo. He could kind of develop into something, I guess. There, he might be my number 2. Ferguson, I think, he's probably a year away from really being relevant. They've got Devontae Adams, they've got Puka Nacua, and Tyler Higbee is still around this year. So I think this is going to be a little bit of a redshirt year for Ferguson. He's a player I'm interested in Dynasty, but a little bit less interested in best ball. Late in a draft, though, you can always, take a shot on him. He could progress faster than we expect, but we've got Mason Taylor, pick 169, tight end 26. Arroyo's going pick 186, tight end 30. So, with those guys, I definitely like Mason Taylor. I mean, when you're talking about, basically the end of the 14th, early 15th round, like you are for Taylor, that's virtually free. So I think that's a really nice pick.
Yeah, it's worth a shot when we're looking at so my projected target shares, 9% for Tyler Johnson, 10% for Alan Lazard, 10% for Mason Taylor, 13% for Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson at 28%. I feel like that could even get bumped up a little bit, but who else is there? A sprinkling of Ruckert, a sprinkling of Stone Smart, a sprinkling of Isaiah Davis. It feels ugly, Dan. In fact, I looked at the projections, and the Jets have still the second highest gap in terms of unaccounted for projected receptions. There still feels like there could be another player that they sign in whether it's Amari Cooper, Keenan Allen, they could be in the market for a veteran wide receiver.
Right. And a Keenan Allen would fit really, really well there. I think he would mesh well with Garrett Wilson, with Mason Taylor, even with Alan Lazard. And
you give me all this grief about Alan Lazard, but Lazard has been just a touchdown guy and a deep threat guy, and we give him all this grief, but he had some good games last year, Dan, and
he did. He will always have some good games.
And remember, DJ Moore put up a top 10 season with Justin Fields. And he finishes outside the top 25 with Caleb Williams. So, Alan Lazard last year, I'm sorry, I need to defend his honor. He was the wide receiver 3 overall in week 1. He was the wide receiver 27 in week 5, wide receiver 30 in week 7, wide receiver 31 in week 3. Yeah, he suffered some injuries, but he had some top 30 weeks.
You went from top 12 weeks to
he was the wide receiver 4 in week 6.
Hang around, wide receiver 3 land a few more weeks.
He had 2 top 4 weeks last year.
He was cheap, and that probably made
and
him
he's still
worthwhile.
very cheap.
He's still very cheap. He's probably a worthwhile click in best ball. I will give you that.
Well, that's why we're here, Dad.
Fact that you can get him in round 20. You're not going to have people lining up to try to take him away from you. You're not going to have defensive backs lining up to take him away from Justin Fields. So, there's a certain point where these veterans that we love to crap on and everything else, where they really do make sense. And being serious, Lazard is probably one of those guys, that you should be clicking occasionally at least in the last round of your drafts.
I was waiting for you to use the Jurassic Park line. You were they were so preoccupied with whether or not they could. They didn't stop to think if they should.
Yeah, something like that. But I would rather have Lazard. Like, I'm looking for Lazard on the FFPC's on the ADP here, and I'm not even seeing him on there yet. I'm seeing players like Brandon Cooks and
Yikes. Yeah, give me Alan Lazard. Give me the Lazard. Oh, well, Dan, we did a great job looking at these rookies. What was your favorite moment of the draft? We'll close down with your favorite moment of the draft. We'll call it a night.
Favorite moment of the draft? I mean, I don't know if I had a favorite moment, but I will say this. I was very impressed with what Cleveland did in the draft, despite the fact that they still have a clown show at quarterback. I thought they handled the draft very well. I thought Judkins was a great pick. I thought coming back with Sampson later was a nice way to go too, because you know what, Jerome Ford just isn't getting it done. They don't really have anybody else. They don't really need to be re-signing Nick Chubb. So they got a couple of young runners in a draft that's deep at running back. They got not one but two quarterbacks in the draft, and they were both later picks in the draft. Dylan Gabriel, I think, was third round, and then of course Shedeur was fifth round. So they didn't say, okay, well, we're just going to take Dylan Gabriel. They did come back with Shedeur because they need help at quarterback. And you want to have fire away as much as you can. So I liked how they went about the draft. I thought they did some, I thought the trade that they made, not taking Travis Hunter, but taking the package instead, probably fit what they needed the best.
Yeah.
So, it all goes together. I thought Cleveland did a nice job. If they could get the quarterback situation solved, this could be a team that could definitely go places. I just unfortunately don't think they have the quarterback position solved yet. But now they're in position where they can potentially solve it next year in a class that's much deeper at quarterback, because now they're going to have 2 first-round picks next year. So I hope that Stefanski survives and he gets a chance to work with whatever new quarterback comes in next year.
Love it. Well, on behalf of Dan Williamson, I'm Bradley Stalder. Until next time, good luck in the best ball streets, everybody.